What would make a successful business leader sell everything he owns, walk away from the life he built, and turn a 6-month sabbatical into 14 years of discovery? This is the Your Next Success podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Carolyn Sengel. I'm a life-first career coach and strategist on a mission to normalize questioning your career, because I believe each of us is made on purpose for a purpose only we can fulfill. The longer we live out of alignment with who we are, what we do best, and why we're here, the more we miss out, and the more the world misses out on what only we can give. The Your Next Success podcast is where we explore how to build a career that truly fuels your life. We talk about self-discovery, smart job search strategies, professional growth, and you'll hear stories from people who've navigated big career transitions themselves, so you can see what it's really like to make bold changes and feel inspired to create your own version of authentic success. One that is aligned, meaningful, and truly yours. In this episode of Your Next Success, I sit down with Ray Martin. He's an entrepreneur, award-winning business leader, marathon runner, mindfulness teacher, and author of Life Without a Tie. Ray was once named Business Leader of the Year, but after a series of life changes, the end of his marriage, the loss of his father, and cracks in his company, he chose to step away from everything. What started as a short sabbatical became 14 years across 28 countries, raising money for orphanages, running marathons, and refining what it means to live authentically. We talk about the difference between the noisy inner critic and the quiet voice of intuition, the calculation that showed him how many days he might have left, and the guiding principles and rules for happiness that still shape his life today. This is about listening inward, choosing courage, and creating a life of real fulfillment. Welcome, Ray, to Your Next Success. So you have had such an amazing life. Outwardly successful, inwardly unfulfilled, and now I believe you're outwardly and inwardly successful and joyful. As you know, one of the things that I'm trying to do is normalize questioning your career, pivoting, and you are such an example of what it looks like to do that, and it all turned out so beautifully that you've written a book, over 400 pages of awesomeness of what it's like to just embark on a wonderful self-development journey. So we are going to get into that, but I'd love to dial it back. Thinking about your childhood, tell us where you grew up, what life was like for you as a child.
Yeah, I had what I'd consider to be a normal upbringing. I grew up in a little suburb of London, like about an hour away from the capital, and went to a school, had hardworking parents who just wanted me and my brother to just get an education and get a decent life. They'd come from quite a life of hardship, and I think their goal was just to make sure we didn't struggle as much as they had when they were parents. So my brother and I focused on just getting good grades at school and following what I now refer to as an off-the-shelf life story, which is, to be happy and successful in life, you get married, you get kids, you get a good job, get a house, and all of that equals happiness. So you're led to believe. And so I would never really question that when I was a child. The only thing I did question when I was sort of 10 or 11 that made no sense to me growing up in the 60s was that friends of my parents seemed to work really, really hard. And then when they retired, they didn't live very long. They just dropped dead within 3 or 4 years, most of them. And it always struck me as a child, why would human beings just work all their whole life and then just have this very little time at the end to really do life and enjoy life and play and travel and learn and all these things, just to find that it's very, very short? I thought that just doesn't make any sense. Adults should maybe work twice as hard in their life, or twice as productively, let's say, for half of the years they work, and earn twice as much. So then they got half their life off to spend the money they've accumulated and play and learn and travel and do all those things. And I kept asking my teachers, why don't we do that? And none of them could really answer, of course.
Because they were still following the script.
But no one knew what I was really talking about. Even I didn't really know how that would work in practice. But I always had this vision as a young child that I'd somehow try to accumulate as much as I could in the first half of my life, to say to about 40 or 45. And then have less pressure to do that, more time to actually live my life fully. And I don't know, I forgot about it for years and years until my sort of life that I built came crashing down. And then in the aftermath of the crash, I remember that thinking as a child, and I came back to it.
So let's talk a little bit about before that crashing down. So when you were, I guess, in high school, I don't know what they call it there, but the equivalent of high school.
Secondary school.
And secondary school. And then you went on to, I guess, university. What were you thinking you wanted to study, thinking you wanted to do?
Actually, I didn't go to university, funnily enough, because that was part of the vision I had, was to be a successful and respected businessman. And in the way I looked at it at the time, when I asked all my friends at school what they're going to do at university, most of them said, I don't really know. I'm not sure what I want to do with my life. I'll just do anything to fill the time. And that didn't seem like to me a good way of choosing. I thought, no, I've actually got this vision of being a successful businessman. I might as well just go into the workplace and start learning how to do that straight away. So when I was 16, I started working. I worked in a bank. And I started to accumulate knowledge and understanding of the business world. I was shocked by some of the things I saw. But I started to accumulate knowledge with a goal in mind of eventually having my own business at some point. Didn't know when that would be.
Still, you had vision. You had such a vision.
Yeah, I just thought I really want to get on with it. I want to learn skills and get involved, get my hands dirty in business and really learn from there. And I believed in myself enough to think that I could do what I needed to do. And I did actually start my own company when I was 37.
Yeah. And prior to that, I think you worked in a company that you described it as more like a family or like a tribe. So what was it about that company culture that you were fortunate enough to be in for a while that was really special for you, or what did you want to bring into your own company?
I think I was very lucky. I managed to stumble across a group of people that had an interest in being who they are and really being authentic in their lives at work and in the rest of their lives. And they thought that one of the ways that could be mirrored would be to create a culture in our workplace of truthful and authentic communication, of people really giving each other radical challenge and radical support to live their dreams and do something brilliant in society, and really helping each other grow and develop and learn leadership and communication skills so we could do something amazing in society. One particular guy had that vision, and we all bought into it and thought it was brilliant. And I learned a lot from working within that group. And one of the things that Robert, his name was, always used to say to us, for those of you that really want to be truly wealthy, and that was addressing the thing I had when I was a kid, you're never going to be wealthy on a salary working as an employee. You've got to, if you really want to create wealth, you're going to have to build your own organization. So that for those of you who are interested in that, I'll help and support you on that journey. So it was brilliant to be in that group.
How special.
Yeah, it was.
It was in the 80s. And especially in the 80s.
It was in the 80s. It was really, really rare. Made it very exciting.
I think it's maybe one of those things where the universe is planting you in positions to be able to accumulate that information.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you decide, you know what? I do want to start my own company.
Yeah.
So what did you choose to do, and what kind of leap was that for you?
Well, I'd always been really fascinated by what makes people grow and develop and perform well, and how do you get people aligned around a purpose and a mission and a vision, and what really motivates people, because I was interested to know it for myself so I could be motivated. But I was fascinated by all of that. And I worked in an organization that did leadership development, coaching, training of leaders to help them get this understanding. And then when I saw how I was doing it as part of that company as an employee, I thought I could see at least 3 or 4 ways we could innovate that and make it much better and improve it if we were to launch our own. This is, say, me and my business partner, who also worked in the same organization with me. There were 2 of us who had this picture of how we could make it better and differentiate ourselves and how we could take it to the next level if we left and set up our own company. And I was in sales, so I had lots of clients and contacts who bought services. So I thought, all I've got to do is I've got just to work as hard as I do for the company I'm an employee of. If I work that hard for myself and just offer something that's better and improved and the clients like it, we'll be okay. And that's exactly what happened.
And so in that season, how did you define success and measure success? What did you think you were chasing?
Yeah, I think I partly defined it in terms of what our reputation would be in the marketplace, that we would be seen as one of the best companies in our field. And I also partly, I think unconsciously slightly defined it as the amount of material success that would come from it. So like having a nice home and all the trappings of a good life. But what I didn't really think about so much was the feeling of it. And I remember saying to my business partner that what was most important to me was to build something I was truly proud of, that someone could walk into our offices and see me and the team of people that we were working together, that we lived our principles. A bit like Gandhi in India used to say, when he was asked by reporters on his journey around India what his message was for the press, he would say, my life is my message. And he meant it, and the way that he lived was his message. And I felt the same. I thought, if I can live this, truly embrace it and embody it and live it and demonstrate it and show that it produces a better outcome than the other ways that companies are doing this, then that would be enough. And that was acknowledged and recognized because in 2002, after doing it for about 5 or 6 years, I was chosen by the Daily Telegraph, which is a business newspaper in England. I was chosen as the Business Leader of the Year to receive their Business Leader of the Year award. And that was recognition that I'd actually done exactly what I'd set out to do. It was one of my proudest moments when that happened.
Yeah. And did you celebrate it? Because sometimes people are setting a desire or a goal or achievement and it comes and they just quickly set another one.
Yeah.
So you're always
guilty. I did that little, but it was still a great moment, even for a short while. And we celebrated it. I celebrated it. And everyone in the company did too. It was a great moment because it really elevated us up into the league table of small consulting businesses.
And so then business is booming.
Yeah, it was pretty good for a short while, but then I didn't realize that the business partner I've referred to a couple of times was also the woman I was married to. So she was my wife and business partner. And one day, about 6 months after that moment, she came back from a meeting and very suddenly and unexpectedly announced that she was leaving the company and the marriage. And I didn't see that coming, and it really shocked me to my core. And very shortly afterwards, almost at the same time, my father got very ill and he died shortly afterwards. And so within a 3-month period of that lovely event, I was out of my home, I was losing my marriage, my company was going to change irrevocably, and my dad had gone. So it was an awfully difficult time for me. I kind of went into a very dark spiral at that moment.
What did that feel like? To have been at this highest highs and kind of living out what you thought was success, the house, the beautiful life, the business, the partner, the wife, the everything. And then rugs pulled out.
As you can imagine, the feeling was gloomy, dark. I thought I'll never be happy again. I felt broken. I felt a lot of guilt and shame because I appeared publicly to the world to have got everything and be really successful. But here I was with my life in tatters and my marriage failing and stuff like that. And I sort of felt a bit like a fraud, if I'm honest. I was worried I'd be, the imposter syndrome coming around. Yeah. I was really worried I would be exposed in that way, or at least all my staff and team members would be questioning, did I really mean all the things that I said I had as values and lived by? And I did, but these events was not in my control. I couldn't really prevented it, I don't think. So obviously it was also made me wonder what I needed to learn. And I went into a period of deep reflection, and I really wanted to really learn what I could from all of those events happening, so I never repeated it again. I was just a bit stuck, to be honest, for quite a while.
And yet you're stuck, and then you had this, some could think of as a radical idea to do something different. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was really so down for about a year. I couldn't see a way out of it. And a friend said to me, one of the ways you can get yourself out of your funk if you're really low is you just forget about yourself for a while and find someone who really needs help and go 100% in service to them. Do that, and you really do it 100%, and you forget about yourself. Maybe something in the universe will crack open, or some new insight will land on in your thinking. So I trusted that piece of advice, and I found out that a friend of mine in Australia had breast cancer. And so I contacted her and said she had a husband and a very young son, and she was about to start chemo. And I said, how do you feel if I came out for a month and sort of took care of you and just was around supporting you and the family? She said, oh, that would be brilliant. Yeah, I'd love that. So I arranged to go out there. And I also knew another friend who lived a little bit further away from her in Sydney, but I thought I'll visit her too at the same time because it's on the other side of the world to England. And so I went there for a month, did my active service, and it was lovely, but nothing much had changed, to be honest. And I thought, oh, that advice probably wasn't that great. I still feel as messed up as I did before. And I went up to Cairns to see my other friend, Julie Parker. And when I arrived, she said, me and my mum are going to the theatre tomorrow night. You know, do you want us to get you a ticket for the play? I said, yeah, please. So we went to see this play at the theatre. And I saw in the programme that the production company at the theatre were putting on a play called Out of Order, which is about a British member of Parliament. It's by Ray Cooney. It's quite a well-known play, if you know anything about that. And I turned to them as a joke and said, I should be in that play. I'm from Britain. I've got the perfect accent. I mean, I'm not an actor. I didn't have any experience. I was just joking, really. And they looked at me seriously and said, well, we know the director of the play. Why don't you go to the audition on Sunday? I thought, that's a waste of time. I said, that's crazy. I've got no experience. I'm going home on Tuesday after the audition to England. I mean, I can't be in the play and I'd never get picked anyway. They said, well, why don't you just go for fun? So I thought, yeah, why not? I'll go for fun. It's a good learning experience. So I went to this audition, threw myself into it, and I couldn't believe it. Honestly, couldn't believe it. I got offered the leading role in the play, the main central character, comedic character of the whole thing. I was blown away. And I said to the director, are you off your mind? You know, are you sure about this? You got a theatre full of paying customers. And I'm a very high-risk choice. I've never done anything like this before. They said, Ray, we really believe that you would be your best person. We know you've got no experience, but we'll get you ready. It's 3 months of rehearsals. If you are here, we'll make sure you're ready. And
that's so exciting. You had nothing to lose. Literally nothing to lose.
I made about 3 or 4 phone calls to clients who were expecting me to work with them and help them in the UK. And I told them this story. I said, look, I've been to this audition. I wasn't expecting it, but I feel like I'm being called to do this by some higher power. I said, I feel really bad, but I'm not going to do it unless you give me a 100% blessing to postpone the work we have. Because if you say you really need me to do that work, I'll do it. Because one of my values is integrity, reliability.
Yeah.
And so they all said, no, I'll give you my blessing. Go and do that. I think that would be serving you really well to do that. Go and do it. Because they knew my circumstance. And I said, brilliant. So I stayed in Australia for 3 more months and did the play. And it was just life-changing. It was amazing. I loved it. I found parts. I had to play this character called George Pigden. So I had to learn how to be him, how, you know, his voice and his clothes and everything. And then on the plane on the way home to England, after it had all finished, I noticed I had this feeling of dread in my body on the plane. I was just so miserable about going home. I was thinking, God, I've got to go back to life as Ray the businessman again, and I don't really want to. And then it suddenly hit me like someone putting a hammer in the middle of my forehead. I went, oh my God, Ray the businessman is just a character that I've created over all these years. It's not me. I'm not that guy. I'm playing that guy, but that's me and that character are separate. I can choose a different character. There's a coach called Tony Robbins. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's American.
Absolutely. Right, you know. He's got a lot of my money. Right. Very good
and
stuff.
He's brilliant. You know, and his books are very informative. And in his teachings, he says, you know, you're not just the actor in your story. You're the script writer and the director too. So if you want to change the way the story is unfolding, you can change the script. You can make changes to your character. You can change your dialogue, but also you can kill off the series completely. You can just write yourself out. And so I decided on the back of that epiphany, I decided to kill off the series of Ray the businessman and just say, right, I'm not doing this anymore. I quit being a businessman. I'm being a CEO. I'm just done with that. Whatever I do next is going to be something new. So that's what happened.
And you had been successful and saved up.
Yeah, I had.
And now, were you realizing yet that you are living out that inner...
through
desire.
the settlement of financial matters in my divorce, I had to go into the details of finance. I wasn't anywhere near as wealthy as I thought I would be when I was 11. But when I started to look at it, I thought, actually, I'm in quite a good position here. I could actually follow the advice of my friend Julie, who'd said to me while I was in Australia doing the place, she said, why don't you take a 6-month sabbatical and go and do some traveling and get new insight into life itself? Just start from a clean sheet and see what you find. And she meant go to Asia, because that's where all the Eastern philosophy and mysticism was, and, to tap into some of that. So when she first said that to me, I thought it was a ridiculous idea. But now I'd done the plan, had this insight, I thought, actually, doing a 6-month sabbatical was quite a good idea. And the only thing that was stopping me was I had this huge mortgage on the house in London, and it was a house I didn't really want to live in anymore. So I decided to sell the house in London, and that was a game-changing decision, because without that, I wasn't tied to any property or work. I had no kids, so I wasn't tied to my family. That decision totally untied me from the life I'd created, the character I'd built. And that's why my book's called Life Without a Tie, because that was the act of untying.
Yes. And so you sell the house and nearly all your possessions. I mean, I think there's even a Bible verse, like, if you really want to do well, you got to sell all your
Maybe.
stuff.
I don't know.
And then come and follow me. But
I had been inspired by Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Fields Milburn, who produced the book The Minimalists. And they made a documentary on Netflix about living minimally, and an experiment in their apartments where they got the entire contents of their apartments into boxes in their hallway, and very carefully monitored what they took out, only what they actually needed, like a toothbrush or a saucepan or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they said they used about 3% of the stuff they owned, and the rest just sat in the boxes. And they realized how much stuff that they and other people were carrying. And I also read a book called Suffocation by James Woolman, which kind of echoed those themes, but also said the way that society is shifting in awareness and understanding. It's like, I grew up in the generation values based on materialism. You were somebody if you had a lot of stuff, if you'd accumulated a lot of wealth, physically, material wealth. But the younger generations like Gen Z and millennials, they were starting to say, no, we don't care about the stuff. We value being free to have experiences. We want experiences.
Yes.
He called that experientialism, values based on experientialism. And I was relating to that. And I was thinking, I want that too. I don't want to be encumbered by stuff. So I found a way to either sell or give away everything that I had in the house. And
how did that make you feel? Like, when you first started doing it, did you think, oh, what the heck are you doing? Are you doing the right thing? Or
I had massive doubts. I mean, gosh, my dad passed away, but my mum thought I was crazy. And people that I knew sort of thought, why don't you just rent the house and keep it? And there were all sorts of naysayers like that. But I sort of just followed the feeling. As the 3 principles, Sydney Banks, who channeled the 3 principles, says, you just follow the feeling, follow the energy of the feeling. And I was doing that because that's like my inner wisdom talking. That's our inner wisdom. It speaks to us through the feeling. And so I knew it was right.
How do you distinguish, though? Like, how do you distinguish between the, what the heck are you doing, you crazy, and the inner feeling of, yeah, this is it? Like,
yeah, that's a good question.
How do you know?
One is they come from different parts of the body, because the rational mind it always feels like it's up here, but the feeling is down in your belly. And you just know, even when the thoughts that you're having are alarming or worrying, you know if it's right, you know you're doing the right thing. I don't know how you know, but you just know. And then the second thing I started to do was I would look for confirmation signals that would confirm to me. So, for example, do I do the play or not? I've got all these financial obligations. It's going to cost me quite a lot of money to stop working for 3 months and not have enough to pay my mortgage. Am I being reckless and stupid and irresponsible? Or am I doing the greater power in the universe wants me to do? What should I do?
Yeah.
So I'm at this fork in the road and need to make a decision. I thought, I know, I'll get a confirmation signal. I'll put this into the hands of all these clients I've obligated myself to. And if every single one of them, not just 1 or 2, but 100% of them give me their blessing, I'll take that as a signal that the universe wants me to do this. And if they say no, I'll take it as a signal I'm not meant to do it. So I got the blessing from all of them, and that gave me the confirmation signal that I needed. That's how I need. Yeah.
And so you sell your house, you sell your stuff, you're thinking of embarking on this
6 months sabbatical,
journey.
yeah.
6 months
Yeah.
sabbatical, somewhere nebulous, maybe in
Yeah.
Asia. Did you have a itinerary or a plan, or like what? I've heard you saying like 22
Yeah.
was it kilos or something was your backpack.
That's right.
How'd you decide what got to go
Yeah,
with you?
because I just took what I think I'd need for the journey ahead, 6 months of clothes and a laptop computer, which is the main thing. In a period where I was deciding to sell the house and put it on the market, I'd actually started dating someone in London who I met through a friend who was also going to go to Thailand and sort of set up a life there. And she'd sort of suggested that we might do it together. She was slightly worried and we didn't know each other that well. But I said, well, you can just come and move into my house while I'm selling it, and we're going to have a crash course relationship. We're either going to walk away from each other before either of us leaves, or we'll go together. We'll know, we'll find out. And that worked out well. And she moved in within a couple of days, and we did go to Thailand together. And I wrote about her. Her name's Annie. I wrote about her in the book.
Yes.
And so I had someone who we mapped out an itinerary with. And so we had like a plan for the first few months. But I realized once I was there 4 or 5 months, it probably wasn't enough time. I was in a beautiful setting. Thailand's all luscious and paradise beaches and stuff. But I was full of fear, anxiety, guilt, shame. I just was so mentally noisy and agitated. I wasn't comfortable. And I was looking to try and find a way to get more inner peace. And I came across someone who said, why don't you do a Vipassana meditation retreat? And I'd never heard of that. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. I discovered it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat in a Buddhist monastery with monks in Thailand. And they teach you the Buddhist Dharma teaching, it brings peace of mind through awareness and observation of your own mind. And so that's what I did. I did that.
And you just were like, I'm in for character building experiences.
I had been silent, so the idea of being silent for 10 days was just like, what? Well, I'll give this a go. I'll do it to my best ability. And I found it was a game changer for me. I came out of that monastery, and as if I'd had a knob on the side of my head, like a volume dial, it had been up to 10 out of 10 on the noise level when I went in. And when I walked out 10 days later, it was like someone had turned it down to a 1 out of 10. I felt so calm and so serene and grounded. And I started to see the future of my life unfolding. And I knew I wasn't ready to go back to the UK. I wanted to stay longer, and it evolved my mindfulness practice, which I'd just acquired. And I wanted to develop it and become more mindful and find a group that was meditating regularly somewhere in Asia I could join. So I decided to stay longer.
Oh, yeah. And so that 6 months
ultimately turned into 14 years. I lived out of my backpack. I never had any idea it would, but one thing after another, one thing led to another. Like I'd been there a year or two in the pursuit of this mindfulness experience I was talking about. And I started to sort of visit places which touched my soul and my heart, an elephant sanctuary in Thailand and an orphanage in Nepal where I ran a picnic for 60 orphan children. And I saw the power of that kind of generosity and giving and support and what the difference it made. And so I thought, I wish I could do something to help these people. I didn't know what to do. And then I met a guy randomly, Carolyn, who had run 6 marathons. He was 10 years younger than me, and he told me about running marathons. And as he's described it, I got all these tingles in my body. And I thought, gosh, this sounds like there's something in this for me. I said to him, Matt, his name, Matt, do you think I could run a marathon? Because I would be wanting to do it to raise money for the orphanage. And he looked at me, he said, well, you look quite fit. Have you ever run before? I said, no, never. He said, well, if you stay here where I live for 6 months, which is a place called Chiang Mai, if you stay here for 6 months, I'll train you how to run your first marathon, and you can do that and raise money.
Wow.
So that's what I agreed to do. And I went into training with him. And about 7 months later, I ran the New York Marathon, 1st of November, 2009, and managed to raise $15,000 from business contacts and people I knew. And I had this big pile of money to then take back to Asia and give it to these causes and get stuff done. And that disposing of it took me another year.
But how did that feel? How was your definition of success changing, and how was it feeling?
It was just changing all the time. It was like moving towards what can I give all the time? How it was like deeply going in that direction. How can I be of service to humanity? What can I do? What can I give? How can I contribute? And I was loving that shift. And I wasn't really concerned at all about my own badges or medals or anything anymore. I was losing that sense of it. And I just absolutely loved being 100% in service. It was a very empowering inner state of mind to be in. I felt I had everything I needed, and whatever I needed in my own life came to me easily. Like if I needed a place to stay, someone offered it to me. It was like effortless. I had this feeling that everything was effortless. But also we were doing great work from raising all this money. I went on to do 5 marathons in total in my 50s and raised about $50,000. And I've written the story of this in the book.
But let's say in school and you had to do like physical education. Did you enjoy that stuff when you were little?
Well, I think I did, but I'd forgotten about it. I hadn't done that kind of exercise in recent years. But I must say I really loved the training and the discipline of it. And I thought I'm making an investment in my own health and well-being for my future. Because I was in my 50s then, but I'm 65 now. And I feel like the healthiest I've ever felt in my life, and so I feel very fortunate that I kind of had the opportunity to do this.
Imagine what your life would be like if your career aligned with who you are, what you do best, and actually fueled the life you want. At Next Success, we support all ages and stages through career transitions, from students exploring majors or careers to job seekers actively searching or reimagining their next move to professionals committed to self-awareness and leadership growth. Stay connected and explore what's possible at nextsuccesscareers.com and follow Next Success Method on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You mentioned that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Tell a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think we all have questions about if you meet someone romantically, is this the right person? When you work with people or do a project with some people and you have to leave, it feels difficult sometimes. And I will say to people who have challenges like that, well, you don't know whether or not you're meeting someone for a reason. So, for example, I met Matt for a reason. He was the person who gave me the idea that marathon running could be a thing. And he then showed me how to learn and do it. And then he was gone from my life, so I met him for a reason, a really good reason. With Annie, who I traveled with, it turned out to be nearly 2 years. I traveled with her and shared a life on the road with her. She taught me a lot about how to be an independent traveler, how to cope with the psychological challenges of being on your own and things like that. So I had a season with her. It wasn't one thing. It was a season of time, a year or two, in which I absorbed and took from that engagement with her a lot of learning and new understanding and new perspectives. And she became a bit of a teacher for me. And then there are people you meet who you're always going to know them. You might not see them every day, but I've met guys in my journey who I'm going to be friends with till I die. And I just know that I will. And I'm always there for them and vice versa. It's like you meet them, the connection's so special through shared values or shared vision of life. Something just cements your friendship together.
Like the people in Australia, right? Because you went there multiple times and got to see their child grow up.
I've made friends everywhere, but probably about a dozen or so of those people I'm really still in connection with strongly. One guy I met in Koh Tao in the early years in Thailand, he now runs my website for me. It's like 20 years later and we're still talking every day.
Now, you talked about this calculation you had done and this realization maybe around the time of your father passing. But tell us a little bit more about that calculation. What was that?
There's a lot of books written about this as well. But when my dad died, he was 73. And I thought, wow, it just really it stopped me in my tracks after we had his funeral. And I just became quite curious about how many days he'd lived. So I worked it out with a calculator, 27,300 days. I thought, wow, that's not very many days for a whole life, given you're an infant for some of them and you're elderly for some. I thought, what's the average number of days that a UK man gets? Because the government and the pension companies, they track that very closely, so they know. And it turned out that it was 80, which is 29,200 days. So on the assumption that I would die on the average age, which obviously I don't know how that's going to play out, but on the assumption that I would die on the average age, I worked out how many days have I already been alive? I was in 45. And I worked that out, and I took a couple of years off the end for being in a nursing home or something, not being able to do much. And it turned out that when I was doing these sums when we buried my dad, that I had 12,500 days of my life left. So no matter what I did with that time, that's all there was. So the idea then of using the time to further my career or doing more work or something like that, it just came out of the equation, because I read this book by Bronnie Ware. You might have heard of it. It's called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Yes.
And she works in a hospice. And so she only talks to people in the last days of their lives. And she says, what do you most regret about your life? And she said, they all say the same thing. Every single one of them said, the number one regret was, I wished I'd lived my life true to myself and not the life that others expected of me. And the number two regret, by the way, was I wished I hadn't worked so hard, because a lot of people die with money in the bank they could never spend. So I took that on board, and I thought, here am I working out what I should do with the rest of my life. And I don't need to do any career stuff. I can do some, but I don't need to be obsessed with that. Actually, I thought, what's most important for me to experience before I die? And travel was something I'd never done and things like that. So I thought, I just want to continue on this path for now and see where it leads. And by the way, I've got, as we speak today, I'm on to this, I've got 5,500 days left now.
But now I wonder, I was thinking about this. So if the data that went into the calculation was the average age of an average male in the UK, and we know that there's so much data that you've never done anything average.
Yes, I know.
You excel. And if you condition your mind, and sometimes what gets your attention is your intention, and if you're constantly telling yourself you only have 5,500 days, I wonder if you would actually, maybe that would be it, and then your body is getting ready. But what if you told yourself a new thing? What if that's a limiting belief and you don't have to be that limit? Have you considered, because what if you're wrong? Okay, you have more time. But have you considered adjusting this framework to just go ahead and say you're above average, you're healthy, you've run 5 marathons, you've visited 28 countries, you have so many people that know and love you. What if you have 10,000, 15,000? What if you can become
challenge.
something? I'm just curious, why not? Is there anything stopping you? Because you've never let any other limit or somebody else's definition become yours.
Well, I don't see it quite as a limit, I guess. That's how it is for me.
Okay.
Because I don't have any children of my own, so I'm not saying goodbye to anyone if I depart, if you know what I mean. I am saying goodbye to friends, etc., but we've all got to go at some point, so that's the way that works. And I would consider if I made it to 80, that would be a bloody good life. I would have had a good and full life, but if I get another 10 years, I'll take them. But I'm not attached or frightened of that. I'm just at ease
That's
with
lovely.
whenever I need to leave.
A beautiful distinction. Yeah, this non-attachment has been something you've really worked.
I just want to be at peace with whatever happens, because ultimately it's outside of my power. I'm not going to decide when I'm leaving or not. So I'm comfortable with however it plays out. And if it can stick around longer, great, brilliant.
And so what is your vision for your life now? Like in your ideal situation, what do you want your life to
and
look
so when I ask people younger than me, they would tend to answer that question in terms of a milestone or an outcome of a few years down the road or something. And that's probably one of the biggest shifts for me, is that I don't have a sort of end point. My vision is how I want to live each day, how I want to put my head down on my pillow and feel at the end of every day. And as long as I'm living that vision, which is, have I been kind? Have I been compassionate? Have I learned something? Have I been open to learning? Have I been curious instead of judgmental? Am I trustworthy and honorable? If I'm going to sleep every night and I know that's how I've lived that day, I am living my vision fully. So it doesn't need to take me anywhere. I think I've got enough material resources that I need for my life. I'm not hugely needing much, but I think I've got exactly what I need, so I'm not worried about that. And I've got no burning ambition to be sort of massively famous or sell 1 million books or something like this either, although that would be nice. Yeah,
but you might. I
can tell you secretly that I would love to get my book made into a Hollywood movie. That would be great.
Oh, yes.
That would be super.
That would be
I
so
would really
cool.
like that.
That would be so good. And it could even be like a 2 or 3 movies in a series kind of thing. There's enough data
Yeah, I
stuff
mean,
in there.
it turned
Oh,
out
wow, that'd be
I
cool.
don't know if you know about it, but there was a couple in England who had some difficult periods in their life, and they went on a journey of healing, and they wrote a book called The Salt Path, and the book was extremely well received. It sold so many copies that someone bought the film rights to it, and they made a major film of it with Gillian Anderson from The X-Files playing the woman who was in it. This is the thing.
Wow.
However, the sting in the tail is, turns out 3 or 4 years later after the film's made, that they had lied about their story, and a lot of it's fake. And they weren't at all who they said they were in the book. And there's a lot of corruption and skullduggery behind it. And so they're in a big controversial legal fight now, that couple. I don't know the facts, obviously. I'm not alleging anything here, but my story is literally, if anyone's going to read it, it's literally what actually really happened. And it is all true, every word of it. You know, so that's why I think if it was made into a film, I'd be very happy, because really is a true story.
And who would you want to be playing you? Which actor would you think would be the best you? I'm just saying.
Dear, I really don't have any idea. I don't even know the names of most actors, but I don't really mind, because I'd be obviously needing perhaps 2 people, because I started when I was 45 and I'm much older now.
Right,
so
right.
I'm sure they'll find someone who'd be up for it.
Maybe it could be the businessman who never did any acting before and all of a sudden becomes this great sensation. Then he becomes inspired to do his own thing.
Brilliant. I wouldn't care. But it would just be such a lovely moment to be experiencing as I was alive. That would be brilliant. I think my interest in that is mostly that I think what I've experienced is common to so many people I meet. Like, it's this feeling that you're putting all this effort into your life, so to try and climb a ladder to get to the top of a wall, only to find when you reach the top of whatever your wall was, you know, for some people it's to be a professional footballer or something. It doesn't matter. But once you get to the top of the wall on your ladder and you suddenly go, oh my God, I think I put my ladder against the wrong wall. I'm here, but this isn't what I really wanted.
Yes.
This isn't the feeling that I imagined when I set this vision up. And I think this is a really common experience. I speak to hundreds of people a year who tell me this. So I'm out there for them.
I saw the same. People being outwardly successful and inwardly unfulfilled. And even myself, I had that same experience, because I achieved as a scientist, and I commercialized products, and I got awards, and then I achieved as a recruiter globally for the chemical industry, and I got top performer awards year after year. And yet I was feeling, is this it? Is this really all there is? And then my body started having these symptoms that I didn't connect were because of this. I had high blood pressure and class 2 obesity, 3 different medicines, an irregular heart rate, a cardiac ablation, all these things. I feel like God or universe is going to give you messages, and you're going to get little message, little message, little message, and then you might get sat down. And now nicely, I got sat down by my beautiful husband, who questioned what was I doing, and he was saying he's concerned we wouldn't have another anniversary. And so I took that, and it became my fuel. And so that's when I made my company Next Success. So I'll help Next Chapter Explorers become authentic success creators. And authentic success is how you define it, not somebody else's ladder, not somebody else's wall. So ultimately, what do you want your life to look like? And how can your career fuel that life? Because when you don't have that sorted out, it's so easy to get caught up in the career and in this is what I need to do for the promotion, and this is what I need to do for the award or for the raise. And yet the people I said mattered most got the worst of me, because I was yelling at my kids and yelling at my family, and so exhausted by the time I was with them. I was there, but not present. And then I started to question, what am I doing? And what does it matter if I help all these other people with their careers, and the people who call me a beautiful name like mom or wife, they're getting the worst of me? That's not right.
I completely resonate with everything you're saying. Yeah, that was how I saw it. But I was also just shocked wherever I went in the world, whoever I met, and I started to have conversations like this, that people would go, well, that's how it is for me. I didn't realize so many people were dissatisfied or unhappy in their situations. And so my mission in the world has become much more about being a torchbearer for greater human consciousness than it's ever been before, and trying to shine the light of that torch onto people's true path and saying, what is the path you want to walk? Because it's not about how much money you make or how famous you are. For me, it's much more about what is it that puts you in your element, where your heart and soul are aligned, and what is it that gives you joy to do? Even because some people I know get joy from making the tea. They just love doing that. And they're not, you can see it in their faces. It's whatever brings joy. And we need all of those things. People want to be poets, musicians, artists, performers. And, at school, you're told, oh, you better not do that. You better get yourself a real job.
Do anything you want.
Yeah, you better get a real job.
Art,
That's not going to pay the bills. But we need those people, because those people are the ones that really inspire us to live our lives properly.
So what advice do you give when you have somebody that you meet and they are feeling this tension? What's your go-to?
It mostly is to say, if you could just start from a total clean sheet of paper, completely start from zero, what would be the picture of the life you want to head towards? What would it look like? What would it feel like? Who'd be in it? What would you be doing? What would that feel like? What would be the nature of that? And just have conversations, even if it feels like a complete wild fantasy in the beginning. The more reality those conversations put and shape around it, I could say, once we've talked that through, I could say, what would be one tiny little step from where you are in the life you're in right now that might take you a little bit closer to that? And what would that involve? What would stop you from taking that step? And then you just get them to start. Because I'd say to anyone who's interested in finding their own true path, it doesn't matter how long it takes. As long as you're moving towards this picture, if it takes 20 years, it's okay. It means you're going to be totally fulfilled in 20 years.
Yeah, and you could change your mind. That's the thing, too. And exploring an idea or starting to articulate it a little bit doesn't mean you have to do it. And I like your idea of what is one small step, and then what would that look like, and how could that be? And really defining your moves with your intention, not other people's.
And it's a bit like, I don't know if you ever used like a navigational tool, you're sort of plotting coordinates, where they cross over. Once you've got your vision, then you can reflect on, what are my values? What's most important to me that I show up every day embodying? Like if I value community or teamwork, I don't want to choose a job as a data analyst where I'm sitting crunching numbers on a spreadsheet on my own. I mean, I'm just not going to feel great about that. I need to be in a team actively participating and engaging with other people every day. Otherwise, I'm not alive. So finding out more about one's own values through deep reflection and being guided helps, but you can do it yourself. So vision, values, beliefs, like you were saying, what are the beliefs I hold that really empower me? Because a lot of people, they don't realize it, but they've got quite a few beliefs they got from their family that are really empowering. Like the idea that being generous is a really useful belief. There's a lot of generous people, and it is a very empowering thing. But the opposite is having the limiting belief, which is I'm not good enough, I'm not clever enough, I'm not ready enough, I'm not old enough, I'm not something enough. This is Brene Brown's done some brilliant work around that. She's a cheerleader for that work. And that is to be explored and examined, because if you can set aside even one or two of those, you're going to move towards your picture much more quickly, I think.
Now, you mentioned a lot of books in your book. Did you read those books along your journey, or did you read those books while writing your books?
As a mixture. Some of the books I referred to, like the book on transitions, I'd read years before, but I thought it was relevant to quote it. But the books on minimalism I read while I was writing. Some of the other quotes, like the top 5 regrets, I read that as my life was falling apart, because I was desperately trying to find some hope in a very dark period. And that's what inspired me to read that book. But I mean, I read a lot all the time. I'm constantly reading. As a coach, we do.
Absolutely. But when you were traveling, did books go in your backpack, or you found local libraries, or just...
I carried one or two at a time.
PDFs
no, I carried one or two real books at a time and then swapped them with other people. But eventually I got a Kindle, because the Kindle I've got is the first edition, the original one from 2006. So my Kindle's now 20 years old nearly.
Still going?
No.
You didn't drop it of all those
I still
places?
got it. Same one.
Wow. All this public transportation, and it still survived.
It did. So I enjoyed reading the most, but always from the spiritual teachers like Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen monk, Osho, I read a lot of his books, the Dalai Lama. These books were the ones that really fed me the most, I would think.
You had put some guiding principles in your book. Have those changed or evolved over
Not
time
much.
for you?
I mean, I realized in the first few months how psychologically fragile I was because I was anxious and worried and scared all the time and done a lot of noise. And so I thought, I'll do this Vipassana retreat. And then that inspired me to come up with 10 guiding principles that I wrote for myself, like my instructions to myself to keep myself psychologically safe. And so there was the one principle was about non-attachment. One was about self-acceptance, loving myself more, because I'm often very critical towards myself. One was about frugality and modesty. One was about contribution. There are 10 in total. And so I thought I share those in the book in case people are wondering what a set of guiding principles might look like. I use mine as an example, not to say these are the ones you should have, but these are the ones I came up with for me. And I explained to people how I got there so that they can do it for themselves. And then my editors said to me when I finished the book and had the story all completely finished, they said, can you write the final chapter of the book to say what was the wisdom that you gained from the entire 14-year period? And that's when I came up with the 6 rules for happiness in life, which form the last part of the book, because it was obvious to me that I had learned something seriously substantial that was transferable to everybody. And I thought I better write down what that is. And so I've distilled the knowledge into 6 rules for happiness. And most people, I think, would relate to those.
So how do you stay happy now? Are you following those principles? Because any interview I have seen that you did, you just have this beautiful smile, just this joy and beauty. It just like exudes from you. But like, how do you keep
Well,
that?
I do my best. I want to be honest with anyone who's listening or watching this. Not every day I'm like this version of me. Even today, I had 1 or 2 really tough administrative calls with a company that deals with taxation and stuff like this. I get so wound up in those conversations, I lose any sort of sense of kindness or compassion, become sort of grumpy and irritable very quickly. Like everyone, I kind of go in and out of different mental states. But what I try and do, because I work in this field of trying to guide others, I try and use my own life as a learning post and try and see when I go into negative territory, let's say, what can I learn from that's going to help me teach it better? You're not your thoughts, you're the observer of your thoughts. And my third rule for happiness of the 6 is become your own observer. Because if you can go about your daily life and be in these events from the observer place rather than you being the victim in the story, then you can be quite detached from what's happening and you can learn something from it, which you can teach others. Now I'm in these crappy moments, and I've had a few this week. I think, oh, that's good. That's a good story. I can tell other people that will help me teach that. So it's actually quite exciting in a way.
Yeah, happening for you.
Yeah. Even the worst moments become the teachable moments.
Do you still do meditation?
I sort of see them. I do, yeah. Yeah, that's essential. I think I said the first rule for happiness, build a strong core foundation of self-awareness. My message to the world is, unless you're prepared to commit yourself to constant reflection and quiet time and stillness and self-awareness, you haven't got a chance of living a good life, really. You are going to be pulled from pillar to post because the world's getting more confusing, more toxic and more violent and dangerous all the time. So be finding a way back to your peaceful center on demand whenever you need it.
Hey, you also wrote something that you said, it's not the acquiring of information that transforms one's life. Applying it every day and understanding good practice is quite different from practicing what we understand.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Well, I learned that from Thich Nhat Hanh. He was a Zen Buddhist monk who has a massive community that he left behind when he died. And his teaching was meditation isn't about sitting on a cushion with your eyes closed and your legs crossed. He said, meditation's about how you show up in difficult conversations and the way in which you bring your mindful energy to speak with loving kindness to another person who's really cheesed you off. That's when it counts. It's in those moments when you need the mindful energy so you can be compassionate and be kind in how you bring yourself to it. So the sitting on the cushion, he described it as you've got these meditative practices, which kind of like, it was a mobile phone we were talking about. That's the equivalent of plugging the phone into the electricity so you can charge the battery.
Yeah.
So you're not doing anything except you're sitting to charge your mindfulness battery. And then later, someone's going to turn one of your apps on and try and use it to do something. And that's when you need the mindful energy to be dispensed. That's because you've got the charging of the phone and you've got the apps. Well, the applied energy then is the critical thing. How you use that energy to diffuse difficult and angry and irritable conversations. Yeah.
Now I'm curious, since the book left off to now, what happened to the love story?
The one I finished the book with was with someone I met. I moved from Thailand to Poland in the end for a love story.
Yeah,
But we
but
were
now
together
you're
5
back
years
in
now.
London area.
Yeah.
So
No, 2 years ago I met the love of my life partner.
yeah, you'd been looking and you kind of defined. Now, how
Yeah.
well does your partner match your
Yeah.
rough sketch of ideas that you
Correct.
mapped out at
Yeah.
one time?
So I'm in a very happy and beautiful relationship with, and funny enough, her name's Carolyn. It actually is true.
Great name. But
Yeah.
does she spell it Lyn or Lin?
She does. That's why I asked you, because she spells it differently. But I'm very, very happy about that. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad it worked, because it's like you want to be like, and now what happened? And now what happened?
Yeah.
You became such a great writer, even with your blog and things. And
Yeah.
I was chuckling at the creativity that you had said. And I do wonder if back in those times I would just randomly be searching. So I think I did read maybe a couple of entries that you had put on your blog at the time. But when you wrote your book, did you go back to your blog to help fill it all in, or?
Yeah,
How'd
I
that work?
did, because I was writing about a 14-year period.
Yeah.
And like, unless you've got like a super computer memory, I couldn't remember, did I go there first and how long did I spend there? So my blog gave me a kind of chronological reference of where I had been and how long, and some of the key things that I'd forgotten about in the grand scheme of things. But I wasn't really writing about those things so much as just to pinpoint when they happened, because I didn't want to tell the story out of time and miss something out or put something in later when it happened earlier or something like this. So I just wanted to be factually correct. Yeah.
How about, of all the places you visited, if you could only go back to one, what would you choose?
I went back this winter just gone, Christmas last year. I did go back. I went back to Chiang Mai.
Oh, yeah, I've heard some
Yeah.
other people talk about that too. I feel like maybe I need to
Yeah.
go there sometime.
Oh, it's an amazing place. I hadn't been there for 7 years, and I really wanted to go back, and I wanted to take Carolyn there to see the life I had there. And I managed to stay again with the same Thai family that I lived with when I was
Oh,
there.
wow.
And so I had 10 weeks in Asia over the winter, and a lot of it in Chiang Mai. We did do some other traveling as well, but we were mainly based there, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. So I would probably go back there.
Did you bring suitcases, and how much did they weigh?
Yeah. No, I took one bag. You're allowed
Okay,
one piece of
You
luggage, but
still did it.
but under 20 kilos.
Huh.
I can go for 10 weeks somewhere and not really take much more than a rucksack now.
Wow.
I know that I don't really need that much.
Oh, it's amazing. What's
Yeah.
next for you?
Well, what's next is life. It's always unfolding. I'm working on an idea for a second book, perhaps. That's something I'm exploring. I'm doing lots of leadership coaching in the UK for people in the business world, and that's occupying quite a bit of my time quite happily, and I love that work. I'm now part of a family because Carolyn's got children and grandchildren, and I'm enjoying a life I've never had before, being a member of a big family and looking after the grandkids. I've never had this.
That's nice.
And so I, the next couple of years for me, if it was just filled with that, I'd be totally thrilled. But I just turned 65 as well. I'm reaching a point where I'm realizing I'm not going to work at the same frenetic pace I used to.
Good. Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. But I just want to be here for those people that really need support from someone like me who can help them on their own path.
Where can people find you if they want to go find the book or learn more about you? How can they find it?
That's a great question. I created a website called lifewithoutatie.com. And that was mainly because when a lot of people started reading the book, they were all contacting me saying, have you got any pictures of any of these places and events? And I said, well, we couldn't put photos in the book. It's a paperback.
Yeah.
But what we'll do is we'll put all the photos up on the website so you can see them. So that if you go to lifewithoutatie.com, you'll see loads and loads of pictures from the 14-year journey in different parts of it. And there it's got links to Amazon and different places. And people, if they want signed copies, can get those from me. I mean, LinkedIn is where most people find me in the business world, on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I loved the book. So now it's going to be this interesting experience of, is the picture that I put in my head, how does it align with the real pictures of some of these places, right? But you did a nice job of being like, oh, this was like Jurassic Park, or this was like, I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. And certainly the picture on the front cover is actually really me going to Everest Base Camp. That's a picture of me that was taken on the way. It was taken in 2010.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. So I'm big on authentic success. We've touched a lot about this in our conversation, but for you, how do you define authentic success?
The degree to which I can choose what I do with my time and have discernment over that, and the degree to which I feel I finish each day knowing that I've lived in alignment with my values, vision, purpose, and what I truly believe about the life I want. And if I'm just ticking those boxes daily, I feel the most successful person alive.
Ray, thank you so much for sharing just a tiny glimpse into your story throughout our time here. I highly encourage everyone to go read Life Without a Try. It is such a beautiful book, such a wonderful example of someone who's pivoted and loved it.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Your Next Success with Dr. Carolyn Sagal. Remember, authentic success is yours to define and includes aligning your career to support the life you want.